All right. We're building atmosphere. There we go. Yeah, so Ivalon, what I'm doing for the rules review is I'm going to touch on a couple of these things and then jump into the rules of play, or maybe more accurately, the rules of running. We're going to do character creation next week, and we're going to do story creation the week after. Hi, Chromatic Coffee. Good to see you again. And hello to Sierra Echo. Gotta teach people about 2D20 first. Why do I have to teach people about 2D20? Tianlos Frio says, Senpai, I have both a game system question and also an Ohio adjacent question. Yeah, go ahead and ask, Tio. You don't need to qualify it. Yeah, hello, Chromatic. Thank you for coming back. Now, the rules review we're doing, one, maybe two parts here tonight. We're going to keep it casual. I don't want us to get lost in the weeds. I don't want us to get confused or to go, I have to memorize. I get the question. Have you ever been expected to memorize every rule of a game that you're playing? How long have I been role-playing and I don't know all the rules? So it's okay. We might touch on something you might go on to forget. You know, in the moment you might go, yeah, that makes sense. And then you want to play it, you got to look it up again. It happens. You are forgiven for that. And I never want that kind of a concern to prevent you from exploring a new system. Yes, there are rules with which you will not be familiar. Pardon. Can you still roleplay that system? Yeah, you'll have to sit down and figure it out, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to sit down. I'm not going to try and... this isn't like a cram school of RPG editions. Also, hi, Daily. And if you have questions, let's take it one step at a time, right? You're building a homebrew campaign around the world of Trench from 21 Pilots. It is a dystopian future setting. What game system would you recommend for something like that? So there's many that can come to mind, Tio. It depends a little bit more than on the mood or the theme. There is a Fallout RPG, if that is kind of a flavor that you think would work. You could run dystopian stuff in Alien. You could run dystopian stuff in Vampire. You can run dystopian D&D. There's many systems because you can do pardon me. You can do a lot with any system. But I guess I'd need to know a little bit more. And of course, if chat has a suggestion, they're welcome to offer it as well. Yeah, Cyberpunk, Rifts, GURPS, says DQ. Also, hi, DQ. Infinity says, yeah, any story with aliens should start or have some kind of run to the escape pods. No, it's a D6-based system, Ivalon. So our rules review is going to start here on page 26. If any of you have the rule book at home and you're playing along, you want to read along, you can crack that open and let's go over some things. Remember, last night we were role-playing. You're in a friendly local game store. I know, it's a stretch. And you saw this interesting book. You know, it was wow, what a cover, you know? How cool is that? Alien, I've heard of that. Maybe you're not a super fan. Maybe you've only ever heard of Alien. Or maybe you haven't. You go, what is this about? Oh my goodness. So we went through the approach. Which kind of game can you expect to play with this system? What are the themes? What is the mood? What is it that you can take away from a game of Alien RPG? And, you know, if you're a big lore buff, you can have a ton of fun with this system. But if not, don't worry. Please don't worry. You don't have to be a super fan to play this system or to get some great role-playing out of it. Pardon. So, very broad approach. And of course, we decided at the end of our roleplay, let's buy this book, take it home, open it up to see. You know, we like the look of the car, but now that we're thinking about it, we didn't really ask, how does the engine run? It looks shiny and new on the outside, but how does it actually perform? Space as hell's a good theme. I can't lie to you about your chances, but you have my sympathies. The great thing about Alien that I have noticed since I got the books is that you can have several very distinct themes, says Daly. And yes, I do want this to be conversational. If you all have experiences to share, questions to ask, or you want to help answer other people's questions, please. I want this to be a great place to share, discuss, and pursue knowledge and experience. Now, I'm not... Right now, this is stuff we're going to cover in our third week about building a story and to talk more in depth about the locales and the themes and things along those lines. I want to teach you how to drive the car. I don't want you to you know, if it was made in a factory in Toledo, like a Jeep, I'm not going to take you to the city of Toledo and show you around and explain why all the frogs and all this other stuff. It's cool. And that plays into the culture of the city and the factories in the city and all that. We're saving that for later. There's a lot of great immersion and ideas for stories, but not right now. Now, we are going to we're going to get into a little bit of what to expect as a character. But we're not going to make characters. That's next week. And then we're going to get into the rules. DQ says, I've ran 5 cinematics. Only 1 involved xenomorphs. Woden says, Longburn game. Colony goes well for years before xenomorph outbreak. Your player character is your most important asset in the Alien role-playing game. They are your avatar on an alien world. They are your eyes and ears out there in the deepest dark of space. You munch on popcorn with friends and roll dice while they take all the risks. There's an unwritten binding agreement between you two, and like any corporate contract, there is a catch. You live vicariously through them, and they in return depend on you to keep them alive. Don't screw it up. There are 2 forms of cinematic play. Cinematic and campaign. In cinematic scenarios, such as Hope's Last Day, I'm not going to get into the details of that because that's a surprise for you all to enjoy if you pick up this book. The player characters are already provided for you and the other players. All you need to do is decide among yourselves who plays which character. This is more for short form games. You know, you're playing through an Alien movie. And treat it as such. treat it as go through. This is high stakes. Something can pop out at any moment. You might die in an instant, but have fun with that. Enjoy the thrill that accompanies the discovery, the horror, the other elements of the game. And then there is campaign play. For campaign play, you create your player character yourself. And again, we'll get to character creation. Some rules apply to one or the other, which is why there's a designation symbol here for each. So, things to go over for characters, not worried about that right now. We're going to presume, hey, it's a role-playing game. We have a character, and the character should work in the system. Cool. Great supposition. And we're going to pretend that we know this already, okay? Now, the biggest mechanic. I know what to expect as a player, a facehugger and me screaming for the censored escape pods. Chromatic. If you need to. You are... Because I get it. And that's why in order to keep things PG-13, you can always drop these in if you want to. Woden wants to be the facehugger. Yeah, play from the alien standpoint. Not a bad idea. What is the catch? What is the cool thing? What is the fulcrum that all things will balance around and be leveraged by? Pardon. Stress. Life in space is lethal. More often than you'd like, you'll find yourself under extreme pressure. In the game, this mounting tension is represented by your stress level. It usually starts at 0 and can increase by pushing dice rolls, which we're going to get to, and by experiencing frightening or stressful situations. Stress is explained further in Chapter 5. The more things pop out at you, the more things that you discover that you don't like hearing, the more things you push yourself because it is stressful. I gotta do this. The cracks form. The sweat, plip, begins to drip. You might make mistakes where you weren't making mistakes before. I'm considering running a cinematic next year at MizCon using Roll20 and going to see if I can get a buddy to play the alien remotely. Ooh, good. That would be great, DQ. And if you do, I'd like to hear about that. Hey, GMV, good to see you. And Infinity says, this has my attention that they put so much on mental stress. Yes. Health, of course. Hit points, health points, life points, whatever. That is you go until you can't go any further measurement. But primarily, stress is the gimmick. Stress is the big thing that happens in a horror movie, in a tense situation. Now, something else that also can invoke stress. This game encourages, is it necessary? No, but it does encourage a personal agenda. You might be a team, but each individual PC in your group also has an angle of their own, a personal agenda. How personal agendas work differs between cinematic and campaign play. A cinematic agenda. In cinematic play, the PC's agendas are predetermined by the scenario. At the beginning of each of the 3 acts of the scenario, the GM gives each PC a handout with a new agenda for the act. The agendas are hidden. You should not show them to the other players or write them down on your character sheet. At the end of each act, the GM evaluates the actions of each PC. If you took any specific actions to further your agenda during the act, you are awarded 1 story point. Acts, agendas, and story points are further explained in the Game Mother section of this book. Yes, panic can build and cascade. Campaign agendas. In campaign play, you can pick one of the suggested personal agendas listed with your career, or you can come up with an agenda of your own. At the end of each game session, discuss the agendas of all PCs together. If you have taken some concrete action to further your agenda during the session, despite risk or cost, you gain bonus experience, a bonus experience point. Buddies and rivals plays into this. By the way, you can see in the rule book, every rule, it is contained. It's easy to read, easy to see. This is a very, you flip through it and look for it if you need a rule book. The Alien role-playing game is about a small group of people facing unknown and horrifying dangers in the cold darkness of space. To survive, you need to find someone to trust, but also be careful who you turn your back to. Pardon. In game terms, your PC can have one buddy and one rival amongst the other PCs. You can only have one of each. Your relationships are important for the GM, and that is for Game Mother. To keep it like the in universe. Your relationships are important for the GM, as she can use them to create interesting situations in the game. In campaign play, you can choose one PC to be your buddy and another to be your rival. In cinematic scenarios, the choice is made for you. Alright, so gear and stuff, we're going to get to that. Not worried about this. There's a massive gear section and equipment and vehicles. We're not going to go into the minutia. I don't want you to remember the stats for a dropship or for an APC or, all that. Yes, there's pew-pews to shoot, there's things to drive, there's monsters to defeat, etc. We're not here to memorize that right now. There is an encumbrance, and there are consumables. This mostly takes a broad approach. You can carry a number of regular-sized items equal to double your strength rating without problems. A regular item is generally the size of a small bag and weighs no more than a few kilos. So, it's broad. This is not a crunchy game of, all right, so here's your score, and then you have to multiply it by 1.5. But if you have this other thing, then you can, well, do I multiply it by 1.5? But then I can double it because of this feat that I took. And this is not a game of minutia or crunch. It's pretty straightforward. Consumables. In the world of Alien, you need to overcome a lot more than xenomorph life forms to survive. Lack of air, food, water, and electric power can be just as deadly. These 4 resources are called consumables. You don't need to track consumables at all times. In the confines of a functional spaceship, orbital station, or planetside colony, you likely have the consumables you need. Pardon. The GM lets you know when resources are scarce and it's time to start tracking them. So, am I worried that do you have an oxygen meter, sort of like in Dead Space? Not from the get-go. And your GM shouldn't be measuring every breath that you take. If it super counts for dramatic flair, because in this point in the movie that you're making in the story you're telling, if you gotta count them, you gotta count them. But again, do not approach us like, I gotta track my bullets and my fuel and all. It's there if you want to. You generally don't have to. Yeah, I know that reference, that song reference came to my head too. Your GM will be watching you every breath that you take. All right. Again, not worried about this sort of stuff. This is more for our character talk. Here's all of the broad selections. that you can build your character around. We'll come back to this. Okay. Role-playing is an intimate conversation. The GM sets the scene, you describe what you do, she tells you how the NPCs react, you respond, and so on, back and forth. The story grows one step at a time, and everyone lives happily ever after. Yeah, just kidding about that last part. Not on the frontier, you don't. Sooner or later, the poo, just like the prisoner Murphy, hits the fan. Things come to a head, a point of no return is reached, and a problem mounts that cannot just be settled by talking your way out of it. That's when you call upon your mad skills. Just break out the dice and show Mother you know a thing or two. Pardon. There are 12 skills in total in the game, all described later in this chapter. And so there are skills, but you have a broad selection for how you want to use them and what you can do with them. If you don't have the skill required for the particular action you want to perform, you can roll anyway. Simply roll a number of base dice equal to your attribute, as well as any stress dice. So this is about building a pool of dice and rolling it looking for successes. Means success. Now, you're going to see this symbol here. That is a 6 on the die, although if you have the custom dice, that means success. When you use a skill, first describe what your character does or says. Then add your skill level to your score in the attribute connected to the skill, and grab that many base dice. If you have stress dice, add these to your dice pool as well. Then just roll all the dice together. For your action to succeed, you must roll at least one success symbol, a 6. If not, your action fails. If you roll more than one success, you can perform stunts. So think of stunts like a critical in some way, and you can customize the criticalness of what you're trying to do. Now, the facehugger symbol that you see, the facehugger symbol on the stress dice, the 1 is replaced by the facehugger symbol. If you roll 1 or more facehuggers, you risk panicking. If you're playing this with regular dice, I would suggest 2 different colors. There are custom dice for this. I would be happy to sell you the custom dice. They're really cool, and they use those symbols. The regular, like the skill dice, the base dice, are black and white, and they have those success symbols on them on the 6s. The stress dice are yellow and black, and the 1s are replaced with facehuggers, so it's super obvious and referential. Do you have to use them? No. But if you have a handful of red D6s and a handful of green D6s, designate which is which, and that's how you're going to start building your dice pools to determine your success. So hopefully that makes sense, right? You have an attribute and a skill, and if you got to do something, well, there's a there's an example. I'll read through that, okay? Example. Lisa's character, Jeffries, the navigator, is making her way back to the habitat on the USCSS Miranda. She's sure something is following her, and she just needs to hide in her room until this all blows over. Unfortunately, the GM describes a section of ceiling paneling blocking her path to the habitat, and says a stamina roll is required to move the fallen metal aside. Jeffries has a strength of 3, but no skill level in stamina. She can roll just her strength in base dice to try and push her way past the debris to safety. How do you know it's Murphy? Yeah, that... Alien 3. Wink. So hopefully that makes sense, right? Okay, so I got it. I have my abilities and I have my skills. I add the number up, and if there's any other modifiers, you build a dice pool, and you roll it, and you look for one success, hopefully more. The art of failure. If you don't roll any successes, something goes wrong. For some reason, you failed to achieve your goal. Feel free to elaborate on why with the help of the GM. She might even let a failed roll have further consequences to move the story forward in a dramatic way. Failure must not stop the story completely. Even when you fail, there must be a way forward, perhaps at a cost of time, risk, or UA dollars, but still a way. The GM has the final say on the consequences of failure in any particular situation. You have one last chance if you really want to succeed. You can push the roll. Now, we will get into that. But with what is said here, rolling dice in this game is you succeed, or how well do you succeed? Because if you roll and you don't succeed, you fail. Make your dice rolls count. If you are going to run a game, don't just call dice rolls for every little thing. These are stressful moments, pivotal moments. These are moments where there is something riding on the line. Because in the way that everything is working, you can have failure on a bunch of things that, if it's so common, if this is a professional doing something, don't have them roll for every little thing. Okay, roll to, if it's normal circumstances, don't have them roll to start up the helicopter if they're a pilot and know how to do it. Now, if it's stressful, if everyone is trying to evac with a minute remaining, then maybe roll to turn on the helicopter. But in this system, please do not have... It's something that other systems, like, hey, we all met through... Most if not all of us, have met through D&D. I've ran it, I've played it forever. There is a tendency for people to just ask for a bunch of rolls on things that, are they really necessary? Or if you fail, it doesn't matter. In this game, make your rolls matter as the GM and as the player. These are the stressful points. These are the momentum changing points. Hi, Keys. Good to see you. So very nice here. To the chance of success chart. If you are a like the math type, a card counter type or whatever, good reference. Do you have to memorize this chart? No. You do not have to. But if that's your thing and you like it, there it is for you. Those are the calculated odds on what you're doing. So if your dice pool has 7 dice, your chance of a success is 72%. Not bad. If you have to push it, then it's 90. Ooh. So maybe the juice is worth the squeeze. How far are you willing to push for success? And this is where we're creating tension. We're creating drama. Okay? So, something occurs that there's a dice pool. Build your dice pool from your ability, your skill, plus any modifiers from stress or equipment or whatever. Circumstances. Roll. Look for 6s on your base dice. And look for, but hopefully avoid, 1s on your stress dice. Hopefully so far so good, right? Describe your action. You create a story together in the Alien role-playing game. Hi, Rosewolf. Thank you for joining us. A dice roll is a dramatic high point. First, you describe what you are trying to achieve so that everyone knows what is at stake. Then you roll your dice, interpret the results, and describe what happens. Describe what you do, what you say, or what you're thinking. If you push your roll, describe how. Do it yourself. Don't wait for the GM. The GM should only stop you if you go beyond the results you have rolled. If you're surrounded by 3 aliens that dropped out of the ceiling and you get 1 success to shoot, you're not dropping the entire room. Now, from your dice pool, if you get 10 successes, then maybe you are. But the system does want that level of almost like negotiation back and forth. Be creative. Put yourself in your character. Right? Be that character in that moment in this horror movie. What are you saying? What are you doing? What are you thinking? And don't forget to have some fun with the social deduction of it all, too. You might have a hidden agenda. You might know, if you play a corporate scientist, if you can smuggle a DNA sample off of the planet, you are going to be promoted. And you know what? You're not going to see these people once you're off the planet. Who cares about them? Now, in the moment, they might help you get that sample or protect you long enough so you can get it yourself. But of course, you probably don't want them to know you have such a selfish goal. So you might say or do things that are not the happy-go-lucky D&D party. Yay! You know, oh, we're working together. Now, of course, that is a paradisical fantasy even for D&D, right? Don't split the party, and how many D&D parties, fight and, have infighting and all that. But there's a different tempo, there's a different, maybe a mood, a general consideration for a game like that. Here, there's something, even if it's simple survival, and you all could be space truckers doing your thing. You've been a crew for 10 years, but you know what? If something's chasing after you, you only gotta run faster than your friend. And that's the moral decision for you to make. Do you outrun your friend, or if your friend's outrunning you, does the wrench accidentally slip out of your tool belt? And, oh, wouldn't you know, tangles in the feet of your friend. I'm sorry, Jill. It's been a great 10 years on this spaceship together. Bye. Whoop, 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 whoop. All right. Pushing our roll. Although I missed something here from Sierra Echo. You do manage to kill all the aliens that were surrounding you. They explode in acid blood. Yeah. So that is a mechanic as well. There is a mechanic for that in here, as you can imagine, Sierra. So it mentions pushing your roll, right? Things are stressful. You gotta get the door open. You gotta get to the escape pods. You gotta get to the chopper. Do it now. Because your life may be depending on rolling 1-6 in a pool of 10. You might go, I have 10 D6s. Of course I'll get at least 1. That seems to be statistically correct and common sense. If you've never played a war game like Warhammer, if you've never even thrown a huge fireball in D&D or Pathfinder, let me tell you about how statistically often a 6 comes up on a D6. Less than you think. So sometimes you gotta push your roll. If you are desperate to succeed with a dice roll, you can choose to push the roll. This means that you can grab all the dice that didn't show successes and roll them again. You get a new chance to roll success. Usually, you would only push a roll if you failed it, although you can push your roll even if you rolled success first to get more successes to increase the effect of the attack, for example. Pushing a roll is not without risk, as it increases your stress level, more on that below. And only once. You can only push your roll once. If you don't succeed on your second try, you just have to deal with the consequences. Pardon me. Some talents can allow you to push certain rolls a second time, however. A talent is a trick that your character can do. Think like a feat in Pathfinder or D&D, and an equivalent in other games. Okay, so we build our dice pools. We're looking for successes, and we can push our dice pools if we want a success at all or more successes. Again, is the juice worth the squeeze? And what did I open up with? Oh, stress. This is the big mechanic. This is the fulcrum for a lot of things. Stress level. Pushing yourself builds tension to a point where you risk going into wild panic or a violent outburst. When you push a roll, your stress level immediately increases by 1 point. Mark this down on your character sheet before you re-roll your dice. When making skill rolls, including the immediate re-roll when pushing, add a number of stress dice to your dice pool equal to your current stress level. This means the stress actually increases your chances to succeed at skill rolls, right? You're building your dice pool. You're adding more dice. The adrenaline is pumping. You're more sharply focused. This is the do or die situation, and you want to make it, and so you're gonna do what it takes. When making skill rolls, including the immediate reroll when pushing, add a number of stress dice to your dice pool equal to your current stress level. This means the stress actually increases your chance. Okay, I read that. It makes you more sharp and alert. However, if you roll a face hugger or a stress or a failure, which is a 1 if you're using normal dice, if you roll a 1 symbol on 1 or more stress dice during a skill roll, you risk panic. Okay, that makes sense. You're stressed. Did you break at this pivotal moment? And if the answer is yes, let's get into it. Panic. Pushing dice rolls is a little like playing blackjack. It increases your chances of success, but if you push too hard, you suffer the consequences. In the Alien role-playing game, these consequences are triggering panic and losing control of your character. When you roll stress dice in a skill roll and 1 or more 1 failure or facehugger symbols come up, you cannot push the roll. Instead, you must immediately make a panic roll. A panic roll can cause your skill roll to fail, no matter how many successes you rolled. Besides pushing skill rolls, other stressful or dangerous events can increase your stress level, as well as trigger panic rolls. And here's a note for ammo. If your action is firing a weapon with a limited magazine, rolling 1 or more failures means that you empty the magazine in addition to making a panic roll. You mag dump, right? They're everywhere. They're surrounding me. So in this case, we may not be tracking every 3-round burst you have coming out of your weapon, but if you're firing a weapon in panic, you gotta reload. In other words, it's going to take that action away from you until you hopefully have a reload to go through. Don't roll too often. We went over this here. In a cinematic scenario, you can spend a story point to get 1 automatic success in a dice roll. You can spend the story point after a failed roll, or even after a successful roll, in order to get an extra success. You gain story points by following your personal agenda. You can never have more than 3 story points, however. Hey, Single Step. Good to see you. Thank you for lurking. Hi, IMW. Good to see you. And also, Satirical Sage. Good evening. Hope your day is much better than the last few have been. Sounds like you're talking about Rolus Ex Machina. Yeah, so we're starting to dip our toes into the mechanics of the game. All right, so this is not a game where you want everything to be rolled, because for failing, there are consequences. Thank you very much, Single Step. And as Raven is playing D&D over on Coffee's channel, let me give you a shout out real quick. I wonder, no, Stream Elements gave that announcement. I wonder why my shout out isn't working. Am I misspelling it? No, Single Step Gaming. I don't know. I don't know why the Stream Elements shout out command's not working. But everyone, please do go over and give Single Step some love and a follow. As a general rule, NPCs never push rolls and they don't have a stress level. Instead, the GM determines when NPCs panic. Yeah, I don't know what's going on, Daily. Maybe Stream Elements was doing some maintenance. Like, I noticed for a while, if you did Daily, that when we were giving shoutouts, it would return with, like, no activity, or it wouldn't fill in what was happening on the channel. So maybe it's something on Stream Elements end. Alright, as a rule, you only have one chance to succeed with any action. Once you have rolled the dice and pushed the roll, you can't roll again to achieve the same goal. You need to try something different or wait until the circumstances have changed in a substantial way. Or let another player character try. This rule does not apply to combat, where you can attack the same enemy over and over. So this isn't just, well, you know, I want to go, we're crawling through a dungeon and I want to pick the lock. And look, DM, I'm just going to keep rolling till I succeed. This is trying to add extra weight to the stakes of rolling and to the consequences of what happens if you do not succeed when you roll. So again, please don't treat rolling casually in this game. Now, there are group rolls. You put the Alien Egg Dice Roller on the Discord. All right, IMW, I'll go over and take a look at that in just a little bit here. When you face a challenge together with the other PCs, don't roll dice separately. Instead, you choose who among you is best suited to take on this challenge. The others may help them, if it's relevant to the situation. If the roll fails, it counts as a failure for all of you. You are not allowed to try one time each. This rule does not apply in combat, where each PC is free to attack any enemy they like. Modification. Sometimes external factors help you to succeed. This gives you extra base dice to roll. Other times, something hampers your action. This gives you fewer base dice to roll than normal. This is called a modification. Modification +1 means you roll 1 extra base die. +2 means you roll 2 extra base dice, and so on. Modification -1, and so forth and so on. Several modifications can apply to the same roll. Simply add them together. A modification of +2 and of -1 add up to +1. If you don't have enough base dice to remove after a modification, remove stress dice. If you end up with no dice at all, You have no chance to succeed at this action. Time to rethink your strategy. You can get modifications from gear, the difficulty of the action, or help from others. Remember, prior, the book is encouraging you as the player to tell us, everyone else at the table, your fellow players and your game mother, what you're doing. How are you doing it? What is your thinking? Because you might receive some modifications. There is a general difficulty. So as a guide for GMs, if you are calling for something trivial for whatever reason, then there's a +3. Right? Normally the GM doesn't assess how difficult an action is. You only roll dice in challenging situations, period. This cannot be stated more bluntly. Now, can you casually roll and just ignore, consequences of a failure? Sure, it's your game. You can do whatever you want. If you and your friends or family at your table are laughing and having fun, you won. You have won the game of Alien RPG. But I hope that you're understanding the stress that it's putting on the dice rolls means that you want there to be stakes. You want them to mean something. Well, hello to you too. You gonna come up and say hi to people? Come on. The other one was up here too. Nope, you're just gonna trill at me? Okay. Well, a fickle cat? Oh, whenever, right? But sometimes the GM might want to underscore that external factors either help or hinder an action. Use the table to the right for guidance. There are also cases when modifications are imposed by the rules, like when you aim carefully with a ranged weapon, shoot at long distance, or if you're in a bad bargaining position when you attempt to use manipulation on someone. Some talents can also give you a positive modification in certain situations. Now, help from others. Other PCs or NPCs can help you succeed at a skill roll. This must be declared right away before you roll your dice. It must also make sense in the story. The individual helping you must have the capacity to support your action. The GM has the final say. For each person helping you, you get a +1 modification. No more than 3 people can help you with a single roll, meaning your maximum modification from assistance is +3. In combat, helping counts as the same type of action as the one you are supporting. NPCs can help each other in the same way as player characters. Letting NPCs act in groups instead of individually is often an easy way to manage large numbers of NPCs in conflicts. Okay. So far, so good? Are you all on board? You build your dice pool, your base dice, stress if any, modifications if any. Roll them. You want at least one success to do the thing generally how it was bargained or described. The more successes you get bonuses. If you get no successes, it fails and there might be a consequence for failing. And you can push your dice and roll again if you really need that success. Sometimes rolling a success isn't enough to succeed with your skill roll. In some cases, you have to beat your foe in an opposed roll. To win an opposed roll, you have to roll successfully and roll more than your adversary. Every success your adversary rolls eliminates one of your successes. So this is answering the question in many RPGs. Oh, do I have to meet or beat? Do I have to, always roll over? Is it, well, in this situation, the defender always wins a tie, or in this situation, it's always the attacker? In here, you cancel out successes until someone has won. But only you, the attacker, can push your roll. Sometimes you and your adversary roll for different skills, sometimes the same. Opposed rolls are common when you manipulate or use mobility to sneak, and when someone uses those skills against you. The GM can also use opposed rolls when she deems it appropriate, like rolling stamina versus stamina to determine the outcome of an arm wrestle. This gets into the skills. Pardon. Sorry, throat's a little dry. I'm not going over every skill. Not here, because we're talking about the rules. These are features. I want you to read them. Like, we'll do heavy machinery as an example, and then you can go over the rest. This way you can see how it can function. You know, it mentions something about extra successes means stunts. What's that about? Heavy machinery. Hard work is part of life for any roughneck on the frontier, but at least you have powerful machines to help you. Roll for this skill when you attempt to use, repair, jury-rig, or break any kind of heavy machinery. Failure. The blasted thing just won't do what you want. And what if the noise you made attracted unwanted company? So this is a suggestion. Does it always mean that you make a rattling sound? No, but this is getting you to realize that there is a consequence. This is one of possible consequences for you to fail your heavy machinery roll. With success, with a groan, the machine bends to your will. Nice. It did what you wanted it to do. Simple. Easy. Now, stunts. For each extra success rolled beyond the first, choose one stunt applicable to the situation. Now, can only these stunts be used? No. If you want to negotiate with your GM, please. Though these are some common ones that will come up with this type of skill. So, for example, in a situation, if you get, so you have to get your success to do it at all, but let's say you have one extra success. Well, what would you like to do with that? Do you want to gain a +1 modification to a later skill roll relating to this one? So you carry it forward. You got this. You don't need to roll to overcome the exact same challenge in the future. This will just mean after you've unlocked this sealed bulkhead, then the rest for this part of the story, you've done it once, you can do it 1,000,000 times now. And so that stunt just means you got it, you know how to do it, and you just won't have to roll for it at all in the future. You do it quickly, in half the time it would normally take. Oh, I'm giving it all she's got, Captain! And instead of taking 10 minutes to fix the engine of the helicopter, you do it in 5. Which is good because you were gonna die in 10 minutes because the base was going to explode. You break it permanently. Well, why would I want to do that? Because that same bulkhead that you just opened to get through, you don't want the other people following you to get through it. Yeah. You know, I believe it was from a Next Generation episode where they saved him, and I believe he was talking to Geordi and was giving him the old talk like, you do the same thing, right? Like, you tell the captain it'll take an hour to fix, and then you do it in like 45 minutes. And it was a fun interaction. So you might want to break stuff. Or, you want to sabotage something, right? Or your stunt could be you act quietly. If Ripley had broken the lift after rescuing Newt, yeah. Yep. So you act quietly. Oh, okay, I gotta repair this door. Oh, this is a ratchet wrench, and you get some successes enough that, like, you gripped it enough, and you were working, and just it wasn't making as much noise, because that could be important. Or you show off. Why would you want to show off? That could lead to good situations later. Good social interactions. Maybe a way to help relieve stress. To provide some camaraderie. As a way to, to build your interaction with others. Now, what happens if you roll 3 successes? Well, the first will mean that the door opens, because that's what we wanted to do. We wanted to open the door. So of our 3 successes, we open the door. And then we go, all right, we open the door quietly. And we showed off to the NPC following, like, I showed off my skills to the NPC following us, which could mean something beneficial in the future. Even if it's that you're getting chased, and instead of being left in the corridor for the thing chasing you, that NPC might go, you know what? That's a good kid. And, he or she was willing to, was really talented. And that NPC will come back and drag you along so the door closes. Hopefully this example, and remember there's 12 skills, hopefully this example of heavy machinery gives you ideas. So you want successes. Well, you at least want 1. And if you get extras, cool. Bonus time. You do it with flair. You do it, with form, precision, whatever. Yep. That was the circumstance. Yeah, he just kept going back and forth. It was nice. It was nice he had that heart-to-heart, though. Like, it was a good touch. And I wonder if something like that is what led into the Generations concept for the movie. But anyway, all right. So you can see here that close combat, mobility, there is this note about group stealth. But as you can see, look, I said there's 12 skills, and if you go, oh, there's so much to read, bleh, your eyes roll up in the back of your head. Look, it is all easy to read. These are not complex tables. It is not filled with sameness. The patterns are broken up. It's nice and easy to go through. Beautiful illustrations all the way throughout, which also acts as good psychological gateways for those of you who want to go back and reference. So talents, I'll touch on one. There's a lot here, but this is not core gameplay that I'm going to be getting into. So if you're a Colonial Marine, you got a talent called Banter. Between fights, you release the tension in your team with some friendly banter. Your stress level and the stress level of everyone in short range of you drops 2 steps instead of 1 for every turn spent in a safe place. Having several Marines with this talent doesn't increase the effect. Cool. Makes sense. It's a way to stress relieve, and it's good role playing as well. So I'm not going to get into those nitty gritties. There are some general talents as well that are not super specific there. Now, combat and panic. We are going to start this. This is going to be a new section. We went over the general rules. Generally, how do you build dice pools and how do you proceed about doing things in Alien? Ability, skill, modifiers. Build your dice pool. Throw it. You're looking for a 6 or a success. You need 1. If you get if you get a 1 on a stress die, none of your successes count and you might panic. And we'll get into panic here in this next part. But generally, that's how it goes. Save your rolls for something important. Build your dice pool. Push if you have to. And explain what happens. Whether it's a failure, a plain success, or you get to perform stunts with your extra successes. And then there's some considerations if the group wants to get in. The group pries open the door. The group needs to move stealthily. What I'm going to do is get up. I'm going to go walk around a little bit. Continue to sip on my my cold agua here, which has space-bending properties to it. And when I come back, let's get into combat and panic. Because if you panic, fun and aggravating things happen. And if you've seen horror movies, you know, like, the guy goes nuts in the survivor camp in a zombie apocalypse movie and says, "We're all dead," and throws open the gates. That's the idea to panic. And we'll get into that, okay? So, I'll see you in a little bit, and if any of you want prize capsules in between here and then, I'll pull the prize capsules when I come back, and we'll get into this next section of rules now that we have the basics under our belts.